Hello and welcome to our webinar, Romance and Love Stories for All Ages. I'm Donna Seaman, editor for adult books at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom an hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble accessing these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a button for Q&A, and today we will have time for a short Q&A session at the end of the presentations. If you have a question for our presenters, or if you need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions. We will pass along any unanswered questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Last but not least, Booklist offers closed captioning on all our webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click on the live transcripts icon on the toolbar. From there, you can select show or hide subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting subtitle settings. Right, so today, yes, we have the pleasure of hearing from Emily Ludloff, Library Marketing Associate at Sourcebooks, Elise Levine, Director of Sales and Marketing at Shadow Mountain Publishing. We also have Rayla Shanehair and Anne Van Sukelman, fiction publicists, both at Bethany House Publishing. So first up today is Emily. Emily is a Library Marketing Associate at Sourcebooks. She previously worked as a digital marketer with some of the top names in the music industry in Nashville, Tennessee, but ultimately she could not resist the pull of her first love, books. We're so glad you're here, Emily.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to Booklist for letting me swoon with you all at this Love Stories for All Ages webinar. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to talk to you about upcoming books that you will fall in love with. Next slide, please. My name is Emily Ludloff, and I am a Library Marketing Associate at Sourcebooks. We would love for you to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Sourcebooks Library. All of the titles I will be talking about today are available as e-galleys on NetGalley and Edelweiss. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have about our new titles, resources, or virtual author visits. Next slide. So I'm going to spend most of my time today talking about our adult romance titles, but I would be remiss to not mention these stellar young adult titles that are perfect for the teen romance lover, or just any romance lover. Next slide, please. Of all the webinars, in all of the internet, in all of the world, you walked into mine. So let's look at these romance titles from our Casablanca imprint. Next slide. The New York Times bestselling author of Neon Gods brings the heat in The Court of the Vampire Queen, a sizzling tale of a vampire queen and her 3 consorts. When half-vampire Mina is used as a pawn in her father's dangerous power play, she's gifted to the darkly powerful and seductive Malachi. Malachi opens Mina up to a world she never knew could be hers for a taking, including the love of Malachi's 2 closest friends and companions. Now surrounded by all 3 men, Mina may finally have the power to face down her father and take back her life and the crown, all that by all rights should be hers. Next slide, please. To continue on the Katie Roberts track, if you're like me, you cannot wait for Katie Roberts' newest installment in her USA Today bestselling Dark Olympus series. Radiant Sin is a sinfully hot retelling of Apollo and Cassandra's mythology. As a disgraced member of the fallen house, Cassandra has seen firsthand what comes from trusting the venomous 13. But when the maddeningly gorgeous and kind Apollo asks for her to go undercover as his +1 at a week-long party hosted by a dangerous new power player, Cassandra reluctantly agrees. Apollo is the city's official spy master, but despite what the rest of Olympus says, there's no one he trusts more than Cassandra. Yet, even as their fake relationship takes a wicked turn for the scandalously hot, a very real danger surfaces, threatening not only Cassandra and Apollo, but the very heart of Olympus itself. Next slide, please. Schitt's Creek meets Home for the Holidays in You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince, an adorable LGBTQIA+ holiday romance. Matthew Prince is young, he's rich, and he's thoroughly spoiled, but now he's been cut off and shipped away to stay with his grandparents for the holidays. While there, Matthew meets Hector, a student at the local college who's fallen on hard times and is staying with Matthew's grandparents. Neither is happy about the cramped quarters or the unavoidable sexual tension, but when the town's charity gala loses its coordinator, each of them, separately, volunteers to lend a hand. And Grandma gets the bright idea to pair them up and send them on their not-so-merry way. In the end, the forced proximity might turn out to be the greatest Christmas gift of all. Next slide. In A Curse of Queens, the story of the USA Today best-selling Kingmaker Chronicles continues in an all-new adventure. The queen has been cursed, and Jocasta, herbalist and member of the royal family, hatches a daring plan to find Circe's garden, a fabled island where she hopes to discover an antidote. But she can't do it alone. She needs Captain of the Guard, Flynn of Cintra. Flynn has spent years fighting to deny the desperate longing burning between them, but he cannot allow Jocasta to face this danger alone. He swears he will be her shield, and together they will do the impossible. But with treachery brewing on Mount Olympus, only one thing is clear. Illyria and its new royals are still pawns in an epic game of power, one that might end in a war of gods. Next slide, please. In When Life Gives You Vampires, Lily Baines is used to waking up hungover and underemployed. Waking up with fangs? Not so much. Tristan hadn't meant to turn Lily. It's technically against vampire law, but now that she's here, they need to team up to save both their hides. They strike an uneasy truce, fending off other vampires and Lily's work rival turned slayer, all while Lily faces down her own body insecurities now that she will never age, never die, and never change. Falling for her maddeningly gorgeous sire? Easy. Surviving an ancient vampire master determined to see her twice dead? Piece of cake. But can Lily ever truly learn to love the woman she'll be forevermore? Next slide, please. From the acclaimed author of Boyfriend Material comes a deeply emotional romance about heartbreak, hope, and learning to love against all odds in Glitterland. Ash Winters was once the golden boy of English literature scene, but mental illness has dragged him into a cycle of self-destruction. A chance meeting with the brassy Essex-born Darien might be the first step Ash needs to rebuild his life. But Ash has been living in his own shadow for so long that he can no longer see a way out. Can a man who doesn't trust himself ever trust in happiness? And how can someone who doesn't believe in happiness even ever fight for his own? Next slide, please. Now, I know we've all heard this. You should smile more. But in this 9-to-5 retelling for a new age, telemarketer Vanessa Blair is fired because of her resting bitch face. After a night of drinking, her work friends hatch a zany revenge plan to bring down the entire company. At first, Vanessa wants nothing to do with it. She just wants to file for unemployment and move on with her life, possibly with Carter Beckett, the cute, cat-loving unemployment rep assigned to her case. But when her self-absorbed ex-boss contests her unemployment and ruins her shot at her dream job, Vanessa is all in for some revenge. Next slide, please. Have you been obsessively watching Our Flag Means Death like I have? Or do you love the drama and the history of Poldark? Then The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen is for you. Abandoned by his father, Gareth Inglis grew up lonely, prickly, and well used to disappointment. When Gareth's father dies, he leaves behind a grand house on the remote Romney Marsh. Joss Doomsday has run the Doomsday smuggling clan in the marsh since he was a boy. When Gareth agrees to testify against Joss's sister, Joss acts fast to stop him. Yet, after the dust settles, neither can stay away. Soon, all Joss and Gareth want is the chance to be together. But the bleak, bare marsh holds deadly secrets. And with Gareth finds himself threatened from every side, the gentleman and the smuggler must trust one another, not just with their hearts, but with their lives. Next slide, please. A young librarian and an old curmudgeon forge the unlikeliest of friendships in the Lonely Hearts book club. Sloane Parker never thinks of herself as lonely, but she still looks forward to that time every day when old curmudgeon Arthur McLaughlin comes to browse the shelves and cheerfully insult her. When Arthur doesn't show up one morning, she's instantly concerned. Anxious, Sloane tracks the old man down, only to discover he's all but bedridden. Wanting to bring more cheer into Arthur's gloomy life, Sloane creates an impromptu book club. Slowly, the lonely misfits of their sleepy town begin to find each other, and in their book club, find the joy of unlikely friendship. Because, as it turns out, everyone has a special book in their heart, and a reason to get lost, and eventually found within the pages. Next slide, please. Modern magic is blended with Thai mythology in Wings Once Cursed and Bound. Bennett Andrews represents a secret organization dedicated to locating and acquiring objects of myth and magic, tucking them safely away where they can do no harm. But then he meets Pirfin Britannia. It's too late. She's already been trapped by a deadly curse. Yet Pirfin isn't what she seems. Wings unbound, she's a Thai bird princess of legend. And while the curse won't kill her outright, it's only a matter of time. Determined, Bennett sweeps Pirfin deeper into a supernatural world far beyond anything she ever imagined, in a desperate bid to find a solution and an explanation for the powers she doesn't even know how to define. Next slide, please. Now onto our Bloom Books imprint from Sourcebooks for some sizzle and some spice. You know, everything nice. Next slide, please. Queen of Myth and Monsters is the next book in the vampire fantasy series by USA Today best-selling author Scarlett St. Clair. Isolde, newly coronated queen, has finally found a king worthy of her in the vampire Adrian, but their love for each other has cost Isolde her father and her homeland. With two opposing goddesses playing mortals and vampires against each other, Isolde is uncertain who her allies are in the vampire stronghold. Now, as politics in the Red Palace grow more underhanded, inexplicable monster attacks plague the villages, and a deadly crimson mist threatens all of Cordova, Isolde must trust in the bond she's formed with Adrian, even as she learns troubling information about his complicated past. Next slide, please. The Night and Its Moon is an addictive fantasy romance from TikTok sensation Piper CJ. After leaving their orphanage, Knox and Amaris take up new lives and identities, but never forget one thing: they will stop at nothing to reunite. But the threat of war looms overhead, and the two are inevitably swept into a conflict between human and fae, magic and mundane. With strange new alliances, untested powers, and a bond that neither time nor distance could possibly break, the fate of the realms lies in the hands of two orphans and the love they hold for each other. Next slide, please. In Twisted Love by BookTok sensation Anna Wong, Alex Volkov is cursed with a past he cannot escape. Driven by a tragedy that has haunted him for most of his life, his ruthless pursuits for success and vengeance leave little room for the matters of the heart. But when he's forced to look after his best friend's sister, he can't help but fall for her. Ava Chen is a free spirit trapped by nightmares of a childhood she can't remember. But despite her broken past, she's never stopped seeing the beauty in the world, including the heart beneath the icy exterior of a man she shouldn't want. Theirs is a love that was never supposed to happen, but when it does, it unleashes secrets that could destroy them both and everything they hold dear. Next slide, please. When Naomi arrives in the small town of Knockemout to rescue her estranged hot mess of a twin, Tina, she doesn't expect her evil twin to help herself to Naomi's car and cash, leaving behind something unexpected, a niece Naomi didn't know she had. Now she's a guardian to an 11-year-old with no car, no money, and no plan. When Naomi's life implodes right in front of bad boy Barber Knox, the least he could do is help her out of her jam. Just as soon as she stops getting into new trouble, he can leave her alone and get back to his quiet, solitary life. At least that's the plan. Next slide, please. And get ready to cry in underneath the sycamore tree. Get those tissues ready, guys. Emery Matterson's life has been broken for a while. First, she lost her twin sister to an incurable autoimmune disease. Then her father left, and then her mother fell apart when Emery herself was diagnosed with the same disease that killed her sister. The only option for Emery seems to be to move in with the father she hasn't seen in 10 years and start over. Enter Kaiden Monroe, the brooding athlete who has baggage of his own. Kaiden makes Emery feel normal. Somewhere along the way, Emery finds solace in the guy with the sad eyes, but everything happens in stages and nothing good ever lasts. Next slide, please. Now, if you haven't read Laura Thalassa, here is your sign to start with Rhapsodic. For the last 7 years, the siren Callie has been wearing a bracelet of black beads up her wrist. They are magical IOUs for favors she once received from the bargainer. And everyone knows that sooner or later, the bargainer always collects. But for Callie, he's never asked for repayment, not until now. When Callie finds the bargainer in her room, a grin on his lips and a twinkle in his eyes, she knows things are about to change. Something is happening in the other world. Fae warriors are going missing one by one, and only the women are returned, each in a glass casket, a child clutched to her breast. For the bargainer to save his people, he'll need the help of the siren Callie he spurned long ago, if she can only forgive him. Next slide, please. And because there are so many wonderful romances from Bloom that I would love to share, but I just do not have enough time, I could not forget these amazing titles, but they are in the Edelweiss catalog if you would like to learn more about these. Next slide, please. And that is it for me. Thank you all for listening, and thank you again to Booklist for putting together this webinar. Please reach out to me at my email if you have any questions, and don't forget to vote for library reads. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. That was so much fun. And now we will hear from Elise Levine. Elise is a veteran book publishing professional who has worked on a wide variety of books, from trendy titles, some long forgotten, to the emergence of new genres and more diverse voices, to the ardent Shakespeare. She left New York City to move west to join Shadow Mountain Publishing as Director of Sales and Marketing, and we're thrilled to have Elise with us today.
Proper Romance series is clean content, sometimes called closed-door romance, so it's suitable for all ages. These are not bonnet romances. There's no inspirational content at all. There's all the passion and longing you'd want in romance, but there's no onstage sex. These heroines are not damsels in distress awaiting rescue. They are mostly strong, capable women who have the rug pulled out from under them. Some have emotional upheaval or face issues like domestic abuse. Some have physical challenges like alopecia. Others are required to commit to loveless arranged marriages, and all live in times when they don't have agency over all their life choices. Their journey is first the search for self-acceptance, and then the search for true and unconditional love. If you're someone who is maybe not a regular reader of romance, I framed our presentation for something we have in common as librarians, booksellers, writers, and publishers. We are all students of human behavior. So throughout this presentation, I've peppered in quotes from some of the proper romance authors with their thoughts on what they think are the elements which make it easy for people to fall in love. Let's start with Sarah M. Eden. Her Dreadpenny books are an interconnected universe of stories following the exploits of a secretive society of authors who are dedicated to helping the poor who are preyed upon by a notorious criminal mastermind in Victorian-era London. Each book in this universe is a standalone and features a different member of the society. They use their unique skills to navigate the dangerous streets of London, as well as the dangerous path of love. Interwoven throughout each book are two penny dreadfuls, which were popular sensationalized crime stories in this era, written by the characters themselves. The new book out this month is The Bachelor and the Bride. Meet Dr. Barnabas Milligan. In the book it says, quote, "London was not a place for the faint of heart. Fortunately for Barnabas Milligan, he'd stopped listening to that organ long ago," unquote. A few years before the story begins, he helped rescue Gemma Kincaid by marrying her in secret to protect her from her family, who were intent on keeping her working in the family business, grave robbing. Though Gemma hoped that a romance might blossom, Barnabas, orphaned at 12 and wary of love, vowed to her that their marriage of convenience would never be anything more. With evil threatening to destroy London, Gemma and Barnabas are forced to work together, but will they live long enough to reach their happy ending? PW in their review says the close-knit members of the Dreadpenny Society add some fun, and Gemma's heart of gold is sure to win readers over. A plethora of secrets and a thrilling mystery make this fresh take on arranged marriage a treat. In March, we'll return to Western romance with Sarah M. Eden's Wyoming Wild, when a woman asks a hardened U.S. Marshal to join her fight for justice and rid a small town of her corrupt father, who is their sheriff. Here's a brief excerpt to give you a taste of the writing. Every day, the Wild West grew a little less wild, at least in John Hawking's corner of it. Hawk, as he was known, was the U.S. Marshal in Wyoming. He was focused and determined, dedicated to his work, and according to a saloon owner in Cheyenne, possessed a heart of stone. He thanked the man for that assessment and worn the label with pride ever since. Soft hearts didn't save lives. Coming in October is Nancy Campbell Allen's second book in Victorian proper romance, To Capture His Heart. This author does extensive period research, and setting and historical detail are very important for her books. She uses tools like Google Earth in her research because she can virtually walk down a street in England to get a feel for how her characters might see it. In this story, Eva is an independent photographer who is still healing from a past relationship, but she's secretly fond of Detective Nathan Winston after working with him, photographing his crime scenes. Nathan asks Eva for a personal favor. Would she be able to photograph his mother's legendary week-long dinner party and matchmaking event? The catch is that Eva would have to pretend to be courting with Nathan so he can avoid the many single women seeking his attention. A criminal from Nathan's past threatens revenge, so he must be extra vigilant to keep the partygoers safe. He confides in Eva, and as the two work together to apprehend the criminal, they find that they might capture more than they expected, each other's heart. Here's a quote from the book as they begin their adventure. He smiled and winked, and Eva wondered how she would possibly survive 10 days of the man's attention and emerge unhurt on the other side. If you love Downton Abbey, welcome to our first Edwardian proper romance. It was published recently, and this is a fascinating period of time as we move away from the corseted world of Queen Victoria, as the new century brings a new king and a dizzying array of new inventions, like the petrol motor car, which plays a part in this story and gives women a taste of freedom. This is also the beginning of the women's suffrage movement, which is a sub-theme in this story. The female characters see the play Peter Pan in London and create the Wendy League to encourage, support, and uplift each other, to let their spirits fly in a time when men made decisions which controlled nearly every aspect of women's lives. A timely topic, to be sure. Here's insight from Krista Jensen about the story. Quote, powerful chemistry and a sense of wonder contribute to their initial attraction. They are truly interested in each other, but need to uncover who the other person is inside as part of falling in love. The other important element is their banter, its flirtation, intelligence, curiosity, and its humor. Here's an example of dialogue from the book. This is between the male suitor, who is an innovator, Spencer, and the more traditional and protective brother of the protagonist. Spencer recalled how much he'd enjoy the quick and unorthodox banter of the ladies last evening. I found them delightful. George nearly spit out his food. That is because there were only two of them, neither was your own sister, and they were not bent on emasculating you where you stood. Ah, answers Spencer, I can see how that could be not delightful. All four other men lifted their various cups. Hear, hear. Next up is Megan Walker's February Regency title, Miss Newberry's List. The writing style has been described in reviews as making you wish you were born 200 years ago, in terms of the courtly manners, knowing how to flirt, and being charming. The story is about a woman who is bound by an agreement to marry a duke who she has only met twice. The union will elevate her family's status to dizzying heights, even though it's not a love match. But before her wedding day, she wants to secretly complete a bucket list, which serves in the story as a way for Roz to understand herself better as she lives out her dreams. She enlists the help of her best friend, who brings along her cousin Charlie, who has come to the countryside to mend his reputation and learn how to be his father's heir. He is working out his past as she is taking control of her future. The author, Megan Walker, says, quote, I believe wholeheartedly that once you know a person's whole life story, you can't help but feel love for them. In this story, I loved giving Charlie and Roz misconceptions about each other and then letting each prove the other wrong. And here's a brief excerpt of the scene where Roz is teaching herself to swim as item 1 on her list, and it's not going well. I flailed my arms trying to reach the surface when out of nowhere, a firm hand grabbed my arm. The man hoisted me higher until my head broke the surface again. My eyes burned, as did my chest, and I sucked in air, coughing and choking and gasping for more. Then he tugged me along with sharp, measured breaths as he swam us both until my feet could touch the earth again. Coming next spring, A Heart Worth Stealing is a Regency romance about an independent woman who hires a private eye to help her track down the thief of her late father's pocket watch when the local authorities prove incompetent, but she discovers a more frightening plot against her. This author, Joanna Barker, says of this book, Ginny and Jack are forced to work together as they solve a mystery. They are complete opposites, but when faced with a common problem, they see each other differently and learn to trust and love. Trust is such an important foundation for any relationship. Placing them in a little bit of danger is also a fun way to make them realize their feelings for each other. Also next spring, we'll publish The Art of Love and Lies, which is a Victorian romance about a free-spirited artist who is an expert in reproducing parlor versions of classic masterpieces, who teams up with a no-nonsense detective when she sees her own reproduction painting on display at an art exhibition after someone stole the original, and the evidence casts suspicion on her. Rebecca Anderson, the author, says, quote, sometimes we fall in love with people who show us the world in a new light. In this story, Rosanna opens Inspector Harrison's eyes to things he's never imagined. He works daily in an art exhibition, but he knows nothing of fine art, and she teaches him, in serious and in playful ways, to look at the world with a new viewpoint. Games in a Ballroom is a recent Regency where Olivia has resigned herself to never finding a love match. The titled men her father deems acceptable are at best boring, or at worst are as brutish as her father, and only looking to marry her for wealth. With her future looking dismal, Olivia decides to enjoy the last few months of freedom with her childhood friends, including the handsome Emerson, whose flirtatious teasing stirs up feelings she knows she cannot entertain. Emerson has been in love with Olivia since childhood, but he is untitled. To get around her father's edict, Emerson begins a season-long game of ballroom tag as an excuse to stay near the woman he loves. The author, Gentry Flint, says of her romance writing, quote, I love exploring different love languages like humor, touch, gifts, and attention, showing the adventure and the discovery and what someone is willing to do to obtain love. The Valet Secret was recently published and is by Josie S. Kilpack, who has written many romances for us. This is a Regency Cinderella story where Rebecca Parker is a widow and is now working as a serving girl. She's passionately kissed by a valet who nearly knocks her over with his speeding horse. She spends time with the Earl's valet, but while working in the kitchen during a fancy dinner party, she sees something strange. The valet she kissed, is sitting at the right hand of the Baroness. She realizes that Mr. Henry is not the Earl's valet. He is the Earl, Kenneth Winterton. And since this is a twist on Cinderella, there's a Lady Martin acting as the fairy godmother in the story, who believes Rebecca is the perfect match for her friend Lord Winterton, despite their vastly different social status, and orchestrates a meeting at a ball where Kenneth can declare his intentions and hopefully convince Rebecca to marry him. I wanted to mention the Spring 23 young adult title written by an author, Julie Wright, who has written several proper romances for us, such as Lies Jane Austen Told Me, and in that genre, as with this YA, she's incredibly adept in helping us understand the elements of why certain people find connection in each other. Journal entry, heading to school. I know what everyone will say. There goes the girl who tried to kill herself. This is the premise of Swimming in a Sea of Stars, a novel about teen mental health issues, particularly teens struggling with depression and suicidal ideation, with an emphasis on how healing and hope can come from small acts of kindness, and as such, every person can matter. And one more YA title, this is coming next spring, and is The Dark Side of Relationships with important messages for teen readers. Beauty Reborn is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast about healing from the trauma of emotional and sexual abuse through the lens of a well-known fairy tale. The story implies sexual abuse, but the incident is not explicitly described, and the story explores the difficulty of learning to trust again, as well as noting that the road to empowerment is an ongoing journey, not a simple happily ever after ending. The author, Elizabeth Loham, draws from her own experience as a sexual abuse survivor and identifies in the story the red flags associated with a manipulative and/or abusive relationship. Let me briefly mention a few new titles in historical fiction featuring strong women protagonists. Under the Cover of Mercy is one of the few books available about the incredible story of Edith Cavell, who was a British nurse during World War I and a pioneer in modern nursing care, who helped hundreds of Allied soldiers escape from German-occupied Belgium once they came into her care after being wounded. Cavell was arrested, court-martialed, and executed by firing squad, and her death became a rallying cry used by the Allies to gain support for the war effort against the brutality of the Germans. If you Google her name in World War I propaganda, you'll see recruitment posters which were very effective in getting more men to join the fight. The story is told from the point of view of Edith Cavell and her friend and a fellow nurse. These are two titles just out this fall. The Opera Sisters is based on the real story of the Cook sisters, who smuggled valuables out of Nazi Germany to finance a daring operation to save Jews in the closing days before the start of war. Viewed as looking more middle-aged than their youthful 30s, the women are able to pass through SS checkpoints at the border by guards who write them off as eccentric and innocuous characters, which they use to their advantage to divert any suspicion as they exit Germany, dripping in jewels which they did not possess when they entered the country. In the Shadow of a Queen is written by the author of The Paper Daughters of Chinatown, and is the story of the progressive, strong-willed daughter of Queen Victoria, Princess Louise, who lived under the thumb of her mother's rigid rules. But as she matured, Louise is able to chart her own course in life and became an established sculptor, championed causes for women's rights, and was the first royal since the Tudors to marry outside of royalty, all against the wishes of her mother, who was determined to avoid any hint of scandal. Ebook review copies are available on Edelweiss and NetGalley, and on Edelweiss you'll always find more backlist titles than NetGalley. Our books are sold as ebooks on all popular platforms. Thank you, and feel free to reach out to me directly for any additional product information at ilevine@shadowmountain.com.
Thank you so much, Elise. You've given us a lot to think about. We'll now hear from Rayla Shanehair and Ann Van Solkemount. Rayla is the marketing manager for fiction at Bethany House Publishers. She was previously a senior fiction acquisitions editor. She's been with Bethany House since 2008. Rayla's had the pleasure of working with award-winning, best-selling, and acclaimed authors and enjoys supporting authors and helping readers find their next great read. A graduate of Bethel University with a degree in business marketing, she lives in Minneapolis. Anne serves as fiction publicist at Bethany House, a division of Baker Publishing Group. Having been with Baker's fiction division since 2019, and more recently joining the Bethany House team, she works with nationally known authors to launch successful publicity campaigns and connect readers to high-quality fiction titles. A graduate of Calvin University with a degree in English literature and writing, and lives in Grand Rapids. We're so happy to have you both here with us today.
Thanks so much. We're so excited to be here today and talk about romance, one of everybody's favorite genres. Bethany House Publishers is based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We are a division of Baker Publishing Group, the top independent Christian publisher. Bethany House Fiction began in 1979 with the publication of Love Comes Softly by Jeanette Oke, and played a major role in launching the category of Christian fiction. Today, Bethany House publishes about 50 fiction titles per year, ranging from historical fiction to contemporary romance to suspense. As an inspirational publisher, Bethany House's titles contain Christian faith content, although the amount of faith content ranges widely from very minimal to prominent from book to book.
You go to the next slide, please. Perfect. We'll start with Jamie Jo Wright. Labeled a trailblazer extraordinaire by Booklist, bestselling author Jamie Jo Wright has pioneered a unique blend of spooky dual-time suspense that is all her own. Dark, suspenseful, and decadently atmospheric, Jamie's upcoming release, The Premonition at Withers Farm, alternates between 1910 and the present day while following the trail of a serial killer. Decades before the term was even coined, I'll say, in both timelines. Faced with their own unique struggles in the past and present, protagonists Pearlia and Molly must each fight for their lives in this suspenseful novel mixed with subtle romance threads. Readers who love a good page-turner along with their romance won't be able to put down the story full of intoxicating menace, eerie elegance, and satisfying suspense. Jamie lives in Wisconsin, just southwest of the Dells. Next slide, please.
Misty Beller is a USA Today bestselling author whose work has been praised as a romantic mountain saga by Publishers Weekly. People who like the Hallmark Channel's When Calls the Heart and When Hope Calls series, based on the books of Jeanette Oke, would enjoy titles by Misty Beller. A Daughter's Courage releases this November and is the conclusion to her Brides of Laurent series, about a hidden community of French settlers in the Canadian Rockies during the early 1800s. Misty's books always feature strong leading characters up against the odds and highlight romance, history, and always mountains. A Daughter's Courage fully delivers on this promise and is a perfect read for fans of inspirational fiction authors Tracy Peterson, Lorraine Snelling, Jane Kirkpatrick, and Laura France, all of whom have glowingly endorsed Misty to their readership. Misty lives in South Carolina, just outside of the greater Charlotte metropolitan area. And next.
With over 1 million copies sold, bestselling author Julie Claussen is a fan favorite amongst Regency romance readers. A former publishing professional, Julie knows what a good story is made of after spending 16 years working as an editor. Now she makes her career as an author, but she is based in Minnesota, not far from Minneapolis, and her novels have received critical acclaim from outlets such as Booklist, Publishers Weekly, and Library Journal. And this fall, she launches her best work yet, a new series following 4 sisters and set on the charming coast of Devonshire. Releasing in December, The Sisters of Seaview features the 4 summer sisters, genteel young women plagued by family secrets and financial woes. In order to make ends meet, the girls must open their coastal home to host house guests, but their occupants are anything but what they expected. Some guests come from a holiday, others for hidden reasons of their own. But full of wit, romance, and just a bit of mystery, secrets will abound during the Summer by the Sea in book 1 of Claussen's new series, and we'll encourage you not to miss it. Next slide, please.
And looks like this one is you.
Okay, I will take it. Former bookseller turned Carol Award-winning author Kate Breslin hails from the Pacific Northwest and has a distinct talent for bringing the distant past to life in her enchanting historical romance novels. Breslin's newest novel, In Love's Time, will sweep readers away in a whirlwind of romance and rich history as they're transported back in time to the height of World War I, where two sweethearts face impossible odds in this powerful tale of courage, duty, and heartbreak. Christie Award-winning author Laura France calls this novel a riveting and exceptional story of courage and sacrifice, fidelity and love against all odds, set amidst the intrigue and danger of 1918 Europe. Perfect for the voracious historical romance reader, In Love's Time releases in December. Next slide, please.
Author Mary Keneally's books have sold over 1.5 million copies, and she will be launching her next series in February of 2023 with this title, Forged in Love. She's built a reputation as the queen of inspirational, historical, comedic romance with cowboys, and she's beloved by readers for her witty, humorous, and sometimes zany stories about strong-willed Western characters. She has published over 70 novels and novellas, and this series about women in unusual careers for their time will be a hit for historical romance readers. Mary lives on a ranch in eastern Nebraska with her very own romantic cowboy hero. And next. We will conclude with a special series highlight. Best-selling author Jody Hedland brings her 5-sibling saga, the Colorado Cowboy series, to an adventuresome close with these 2 page-turning Western romances. Each book in the series follows a different member of the McQuaid family. Having been raised by her older brothers, book 4 stars Ivy McQuaid, a heroine who prefers lassos to lace as she disguises her identity to make a name for herself on the rodeo circuit. But her secret is put in jeopardy when she's confronted with a former flame. Years ago, Jericho Bliss shattered her heart. Now she must learn to trust him with her life. And finally, the much anticipated conclusion to the series coming out this spring follows prodigal son Dylan McQuaid as he works to reconcile with his family until an unknown woman arrives in town with a child she claims is his son. Time will tell if Catherine is who she says she is, but will it be too late? Full of romance and humor, readers will fall in love with the McQuaid family as they rope and ride through the Wild West.
If you could go to the next slide, please. So we just wanted to say thank you for joining us, and also thank you to Booklist for putting this presentation together. We hope you snag one of these romances to keep you cozy this fall. As you can see on our slides, we just wanted to remind you that we're happy to connect with you guys on social, so please feel free to follow us or reach out to us at our emails with any questions. Also just wanted to say that each of these titles that we've mentioned in the last couple minutes is also available to request on NetGalley. So without further ado, thanks again, and I'll pass it on to Donna.
Thank you so much, Anne and Rayla. Great teamwork, and staying cool through weird tech glitches. So we're going to have a little conversation now. Emily and Elise will join us. And I'm going to begin. Someone did question Elise about proper romance. So this makes me think that we'll start with a little discussion of the romances that you each publish and degrees of sexuality and how sex scenes are depicted. So Elise, why don't you start and define proper romance for us?
Yeah, so for us, proper just means that there's no onstage sex. And as I said, there's no inspirational content at all. There's all the longing and passion that you want in this category, but it's suitable for all ages. But as you saw from that excerpt that I read from Miss Newberry's list, there are metaphors for sex scenes. And that scene where she's drowning is all about the physicality of being saved by the protagonist, her suitor. So that's how we define proper romance.
Thank you. Raylan, Anne, can you talk about sexuality in your Bethany house title?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Similar to Elise, our titles don't present sex on the page. There are references to it as the occasion allows, whether in someone's past or in a current relationship that they have. But it would be very mild and also very appropriate for all ages. Our books do often tend to appeal to teens of parents who are concerned about what their teens might be reading. So that is a little.
Okay, thank you so much. That was very helpful. So Emily, at Sourcebooks, you have a very different approach and a wide variety of subgenres.
Yes, so at Sourcebooks, we have everything you could ever want on that scale. You have everything from no sex on the page, fade to no sex on the page with our Sourcebooks Fire, our YA imprint, fade to black in some of our Casa titles, and then it just gets more steamier and steamier from there. We like to use the little peppers to say like how spicy it is. But as you could probably tell, some of our Bloom titles are very, 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 very spicy.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's good. I mean, when in reviews and Booklist, we always make sure to mention that as some aspects to help librarians choose and recommend romances. I'm very happy to see that we have some audience questions, so I'm going to turn to those. So one question from Jennifer Thompson is, what are the key elements in a romance that makes them publishing worthy? What are you looking for in books and what do you hear from your acquisition editors? Let's go back around. We'll start with Elise again.
So, the sales department, which I represent, has a real say in the proposals that come in. So one of the things that we look for in terms of our brand is female empowerment. And the perception from some people for romance is they're very cookie cutter. And I think of them more as a snapshot in time of women's social history and more literary than what we might think of as the romances of the past. So I'm looking for the same story threads that I do in any kind of fiction that we do. And the fact that it's romance is sort of a category issue, but has nothing to do with the process that we use in terms of whether it's right for us to publish.
Thank you. Rayla and Anne?
I'll jump in again on this one, and Anne, you can add if you have anything. I think something that we find valuable in our romances is each of the partners in the romance having their own character arc as well. So as they're growing together as partners, they're growing together also as on their own and becoming more of themselves and a better version of themselves. So being able to kind of journey along with the romance while the two people end the book being in a place where you feel really good about them being with the person that they fell in love with as well.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I just build off of what Rayla said. As she mentioned, each character, the protagonist, male or female, or extended, have their own character arcs, and they might be learning very unique lessons separately, but then also there are some elements where it's they're learning lessons that are very similar. You can kind of see how those play out between their dynamic, whether it's relationship or just the conflicts that they're facing, again, either alone or separately. So
thank you. Emily?
So I think a lot of the romances we get, they're things that people want to read, especially with our Bloom imprint. It's a very interesting imprint. It's amazing in the sense that we acquire a lot of independently published authors, and we give them a wider platform to share their work. And it's things that people are finding organically, and we just want to help grow the readership because we believe so much that romance is just so important. And especially now, people want to read romance because they want something light and happy with a guaranteed happily ever after, especially just with, COVID and the world right now. You just want to escape. And so that's really what we look for, is a good escape.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have a couple of questions that I'll sort of combine. So viewers are asking about diverse books, diversity of writers and characters. I wonder if you could each talk about that. Elise, diversity at Shadow Mountain?
It's a fair question, and it's one that I get all the time when we do in-person conferences. The race is not identified in the story, and in the covers, we're trying to not show not just race issues, but what the protagonist looks like. That's based on a lot of market research that we do. Our customers are saying to us that they don't want to see the face. They want to imagine what the characters look like. Our company, like every other publisher, is really intent on being more diverse in terms of the voices of our writers. And we have very active programs to find that. It is not where it should be, but we are getting there as a company and as an industry.
Thank you. Rayla?
Yeah, we are not where we should be, and we have been working towards that as well, especially in terms of acquisitions and new author relationships. So like Elise said, like most publishers, we're grateful that this has become more of a topic, as it should have been many years ago. So we are definitely growing in this area, but have a lot of work left to do, and are really excited to just fully represent all of the readers and all of the people who love to read romance.
Thank you. Emily, can you speak to diversity at Sourcebooks?
Yeah, so I think with everyone, as already said, we always all want to do better with as it pertains to diversity, race, gender, sexualities, what have you. We are, every season I see more and more diversity, and it's taking over. And I'm very excited, very excited about it. I think recently I counted like over 100 LGBTQIA 2S plus titles that we have, and with more and more to come. And so we're just really excited to get out voices that are diverse, that people want to read.
Yes, thank you. I wonder if one source of that, and Stacy Charbonneau, I hope I'm saying your name right, Stacy, asks of you, Emily, interesting that so many of your Bloom imprint books are TikTok famous. Do you see this as a trend for future publishing, authors who create their own brand on social media?
I do. I believe that it's a great relationship between TikTok and readers. It'll go both ways. Readers will find books and they will blow up on TikTok, and authors will create books on TikTok that readers will find. And so, yes, we've been doing a lot of finding those authors that are doing really well on TikTok, because we realize again that if they're going viral on TikTok, people want to read it. And so we want to give them a platform to share their voice and their story, and, make sure that people read what they're excited about.
Thank you. Another trend I've been really noticing is all the rom-coms across contemporary and historical. I wonder if anyone wants to comment on that. Elise, comedy in the Victorian and Edwardian eras?
Well, as you saw from a lot of the author comments about what are the elements that make it easy for people to fall in love, it's being charming, and the banter is really important. And as a reader of romance myself, that's the thing that really draws me to it. These are mostly times before cell phones were on tables and all the distractions that we have in modern day. So rom-com elements are very important in terms of the trend line of what people are looking for. And there was an article just this week, I forgot where, but the rom-com covers are very important as a trend line, because it gives people the ability to read a romance book, but not be embarrassed by reading a bodice ripper. And so that's something that really we took notice of at Shadow Mountain.
Interesting. Humor in Bethany House titles, Shayla?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of echo something Emily had said earlier. Just, I think rom-com fits with what people want in their reading these days. They want to find something they can enjoy and have fun with and, you know, feel good about after, you know, just a stretch of hard times collectively. So yeah, we're seeing that as well too. And it's just it's fun to find that there's a lot of authors who love writing that as well. One of the titles we didn't cover today, but that we're really excited about coming out next spring, by author Toni Shiloh. We have 2 previous releases with her, and this one will be coming out next year. It's called The Love Script, and it's a Hollywood set rom-com, and Toni is really great at just leaning into tropes that readers love, and just kind of finding those favorite tropes and then just really bringing them to life. And yeah, instead of trying to recreate the wheel, just really like playing off of the things that we all know. We all have our tropes that we love to read. So yeah, we're seeing that as well, which has been super fun as a fan of rom-coms myself.
Indeed, I love them too. The wittiness. Well, I hope you'll all enjoy our Spotlight on Romance in the Booklist September 15 issue, where we have a couple of trends. You mentioned Hollywood. I can't believe how many romances there are that in film and TV production. And also you mentioned Toni Shiloh, lots of new royals, which all of you have also been publishing a new approach to that trope, which is so popular. I think we have time for a couple more. A quick one for Rayla. How many books are in the Jody Hedland Cowboy series?
Oh, great question. Thanks for asking. So it's 5 books total, 5 siblings, so 1 book per sibling.
That's great. I love the sibling series. Thank you. So another, to close out the question, can each of you, starting with Elise, if a reader comes to a librarian and says, I've never read romance before, what should I read? What would you recommend, Elise?
Well, as someone who has a hand in writing the descriptive copy, I would say flip that book over and read the back of the book and see what strikes your fancy in that, because that's really the key to understanding what the themes are in that title.
Good advice. Emily, how about you? What would you say?
I would probably say to read something maybe like a rom-com in a setting they're interested in, say Hollywood or royals, or if they are a little more hesitant, maybe give them something that's a little more plot focused and has a side romance, and kind of introduce it softly so that they can, you know, read this great story, but also there's a romance going on over there. And then if they realize they really like that romance side plot line, then they can start exploring more romance-centric books. So, you know, anything that has like a bigger plot line than just the romance is always a great pick.
Kind of ease in. Thank you. Rayla or Anne?
I want to steal Emily's answer. I think a lot of readers have realized that they like romance through almost like a gateway book, if I want to call it that. So yeah, just realizing that there's so many different shades to romance, and that well, like Elise was saying, that you don't have to be embarrassed about reading it. You can be proud of the fact that you're reading it, and then also just that there's always a lot to every story. So there's a lot of pieces coming into play, you know, personal growth, family relationships, love stories of all kinds. So yeah, maybe librarians can choose a book that has a romance in it to give the reader a positive experience.
That's great. Thank you so much.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Yes, you second that, Anne?
I would, yes. I just think, you know, like Rayla and Emily said, it's a great gateway to be exposed to some of these things. And yeah, romance isn't always like the main element in some of these novels. You know, it could be like a peripheral one that like richens all of the other elements that are already, you know, present in the novel. As far as like specific examples, I would say like the Jamie Jo Wright title that we listed, you know, is primarily, I would say, like more suspensey, you know, it's a page turner, but there definitely is a peripheral like romance plot that kind of runs through the whole thing and makes it a little bit more full. So
great, thank you. I just want to say you should never be ashamed of reading anything. Thank you, all of you, so much for your presentations. Thank you, audience members, for your wonderful questions. I'm so happy to have them. Tomorrow, you will all receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars. Where else? There you can find archives of past webinars and register for upcoming webinars like those that you see here. Yes, indeed. Now you can share Booklist love, and this is a love webinar, with everyone connected to your school district, library system, or higher learning institution. Booklist Online Unlimited offers just that, unlimited simultaneous access to 30 years worth of review and article archives, plus digital editions of Booklist, book links, Booklist Guide to Graphic Novels in Libraries, and Booklist Reader. That's a lot. Trust me, I've worked on a lot of this. For pricing and other questions, visit us at booklistonline.com/subscribe. Have you heard Booklist Reader, our new magazine? Oh my gosh, it's a year. It's been a year. Our new magazine that offers reading recommendations to patrons, library users of all ages. It's coming to print in January in the new year. Go to www.bit.ly/booklistreaderinprint to find out how you can order print copies in bulk to give away at your library. Do you already have a Booklist subscription? You can share the latest issue of Booklist Reader now. Please go to our website for more details. Thank you so much for joining us for today's wonderful webinar. One more big thank you to our marvelous panelists and to our sponsors, Sourcebooks, Shadow Mountain Publishing, and Bethany House Publishers. This concludes today's webinars. See you next time. Stay well, read happy.